Welcome back for another part of the Thidrekssaga. Here at Sagenheim, we have told you about a woundful duel, strange engagement, and one that became Thidrek's vassal in the last part of the Thidrekssaga. But now for something new from those days of old. Thetleif did not want to go into the king's court and beg for meat early and late. He took it into his mind that he would rather manage with that which he had himself, as long as it lasted. Something would come to hand as soon as that was used up. On the first day of the feast, Thetleif went out to the market, and many squires went with him. And when they came to the market, Thetleif had them buy wine and food and all kinds of delicacies, so that not even the king's board should be better supplied with meat and drink than theirs. Thetleif had the things brought back to the lodgings, and he set his table with the costly provisions. He invited many squires and other vassals, and offered many a brave fellow of them a feast for all of 3 days. And now all of his money he had brought with him from home was used up in this party, 30 marks of gold. He still didn't wish to bring his feast to an end, as long as the king's feast was going on. He went out to the market and bought a great deal for the table, and he pawned Heimir's horse Rispa and his sword Nagelring and all of his armor for 10 marks of gold. And he now invited many more men to his feast, and they enjoyed this until all the money was used up. He still did not wish to stop, and he went out to the marketplace and bought even more for his table and his feast than before, and he bought the best of everything. He pawned Vidgar's horse Skemming and his sword Mimung and all of his armor for 20 marks of gold. And now he increased his feast greatly, and he had his lodging hung with costly materials, and he offered everyone money as long as it lasted until it was all gone. And he then wished to renew the feast. The king's feast had now lasted a full 7 days, and now there were 2 days left. Thetleif rode to the market with Thidrek's horse Falka, with all of his weapons and his armor. He set out to renew the feast again, and bought the most expensive things he found. And when he saw someone about to buy something at the market for 12 pennies, he went there before him and bought it for 20 pennies, rather than do without it. Before he had bought everything for his feast, he pawned Thidrek's horse Falka, his sword Ekisax with gold decorations, and his hard helmet Hildegrim, and along with these things his armor. He received 30 marks of gold for it. And he invited all the squires and vassals, minstrels and jugglers, everyone who would accept, and he did not skimp with his 3,000 guests. They drank as long as the feast lasted, and on the day the feast ended, he gave a chief of the minstrels named Isung his gold ring, which his mother had given him. And this minstrel was a chief of the minstrels and jugglers, and more famous than any other. And he gave him all new clothing etched with gold and cut from purple cloth. These were the noble clothes of Prince Thidrek. And he thus repaid Isung for his entertainment, and he gave every juggler a mark or 2. Thidrek called Thetleif to him, and when he came, he asked for his armor, and told him to saddle his horse and the horses of his companions, because they wished to depart for home. Thetleif said, "Sir, you will first have to redeem the money that I needed while you were at this feast, so that I and my comrades could have something as long as we were waiting here. It seemed a long way to go to the king's table to get food, because this place is unknown to me since I have never been here before." And Thidrek answered, Yes, I shall certainly pay what it costs you during this time. How much is it that you wish to have paid?" Thetleif answered, "Not much. I used that which I had myself first, and you shan't pay that. That was 30 marks of gold, and what I needed after that was 60 marks of gold. You will pay that if you wish, because Heimir's horse and weapons are at pawn for 10 marks of gold, Vidgar's horse and weapons for 20 marks, and your armor for 30 marks. In addition, I gave your fine clothes to a minstrel along with a gold ring. And now as I came to meet you, the courtyard was locked, and the man did not open as quickly as I needed. And I broke open the door with my feet, so that the iron gate struck the man roughly who was standing inside, and was supposed to open it. And when I came into the courtyard, servants and cooks were coming at me, and they intended to do me some harm. I took one of them by the foot, and with him I struck 2 others dead. I expect the one I struck them with doesn't feel too well either. I know that you will certainly want to answer these cases for me." And for the first time, Heimir thought he recognized the man, but Thetleif had known him immediately from the first time he had seen him. Heimir spoke. "It seems to me that we have gotten ourselves a groom and servant we have to put up with, even if he were to take all of our weapons and throw them in the dirt and trample on them." Thidrek stood up and went to the king and said, "Sir, will you pay the expenses incurred by our servants and horses while we were here?" And the king answered quickly, "Certainly I shall pay that. Call my treasurer Zivka and tell him to give you however much you need. How much money do you need?" And Thidrek answered, "Ask this servant and have him tell you." The king spoke to Thetleif. "You, young man, how much money did you use for yourself and the horses while you were here?" And Thetleif answered, "Sir, it is not much. I paid out 30 marks of gold of my own, and we won't mention that if you wish. The rest of the money is 60 marks of gold, and that you need to pay, because I pawned the horses and weapons of Thidrek and 2 of his comrades." The king answered angrily, "What kind of a man are you, that you use up so much money in 9 days? What kinds of deeds have you done that you would be worthy of such extravagance? Are you some kind of champion, or are you simply a fool?" And Thetleif spoke. "It was the custom of noble men, wherever I have been in the past, that one would not speak so long with a man without inviting him to the table if he had not eaten anything. The king commanded that he should be brought food and drink, and it was done. He ate now like 3 men. A golden cup was brought to him full of wine, as much as a scullery servant could carry. He took it and drank it with 1 draught. And the king and Thidrek and all of their men stared while he did that, but he paid no attention. A knight spoke up He was called Valtari of Vasgastein, and he was the nephew of Aminrek and of Tetma, and he was the greatest fighter among the king's retainers, both in strength and accomplishments. What can this man do besides spend money or eat and drink? Can he shoot spears or throw stones? And Thetleif answered, I suspect that I could do whatever you wish with whomever you designate. And Valtari said eagerly, You shall play these games with me. If you play better, then you shall dispose of my head. But if you cannot do as you claim, then you shall certainly lose your life here with shame. Never again shall you use up so much money as you have wasted here, and no chieftain will do such shame as you have done to the king, in that everyone says that your feast was half again as rich, in all things as was the king's own. It was foolhardy for a man who is no better than you seem to me. And Thetleif answered, Anyone would need forgiveness for that speech, but I am quite ready to test myself in this game. What more can happen than that I lose my life if things go badly? You have certainly given me enough cause for the contest. My kinsmen will have little grief for me if I am not up to this contest, if any of them are brave men. But I don't think it will turn out this way. They went out to a meadow and took a stone, and it did not weigh less than 2 ship-pounds. Valtari took the stone and threw it 9 feet, but Thetleif cast it 10 feet. Now Valtari cast it 13 feet, but Thetleif cast it 18 feet. Valtari did not want to try again, so Thetleif won this game, and everyone found it very impressive. Then they took a standard staff that belonged to King Attila, whom King Ermenric had invited to the feast, because there was a good friendship between them. This standard staff was the heaviest of all that had been brought there. Valtari threw the shaft over the king's hall, so that it came to rest in the walls of the hall. Everyone who saw that said that it was an amazing shot. Thetleif took the shaft and cast it over the hall, and when he had cast it, he ran through the hall, which had 2 doors, and caught the shaft in the air and carried it away. Everyone said that Thetleif had won these 2 games and won Valtari's head. King Aminrek spoke. Good man, I wish to ransom my kinsmen with gold and silver and treasure, as much as you wish. And Thetleif said, What should I do with your kinsman's head? He is a good man, and I will give you his head, sir, and you should reward it as you yourself wish. But before that you must redeem my lord's armor and that of his men. But you shall not pay more than you yourself wish. And the king spoke. I will gladly accept this choice, and have God's and my gratitude for it. I shall repay you well for this. The king then had as much money as they needed brought, and he redeemed his comrades' weapons and horses that had been pawned. And on top of this he gave him the most magnificent equipment, and as much money as he had paid himself. And after that, the king dubbed him a knight. Now Thetleif told his name, and all of his family, and he became famous throughout the lands because of his valor. Thidrek accepted him as a comrade, and called him his equal. The feast ended now, and each promised the other friendship. Prince Thidrek rode home to Bern, and Thetleif and all of his men, including the chief minstrel Isung, followed him there. After they had been back in Bern for a few days, there came a young man riding up. His name was Amlung, and he was the son of Earl Hornbogi. He had traveled there in search of his father, and he wanted to remain there. Didrik welcomed him warmly, and now there were 9 comrades, and each was the equal of the others. King Thedma became ill and was near to death. He died then at the height of his honor, and Thidrek, his son, acceded to the kingdom and was now king in Bern and the greatest chieftain known far and wide. His name was honored and will never be forgotten in all the southern kingdoms as long as the world stands. These last words, from days of old, happened to pass the test of time, as they made it into our day and age. If you want to hear more about Thidrek and his men, tune in again for the next episode and subscribe. We talk about Osantrik's giants, war in Hunaland, and Vidgar's fate in the next episode of the Thidrekssaga.